no, the gentlelady from New Mexico, Ms. Grisham, is next.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I want to do a couple of things. I want to go back to many of the statements that have made today, and I want to try to fast forward to the situation that we're all dealing with. And then I've got a very specific question about a protocol that I'm hoping, not in executive session, you can answer. So we're all trying to figure out what we can do in this hearing to understand this incredible breach, but at the same time recognize that this is the people's house, a public building, and to work on those balances. And you've heard many of members be concerned about the thought that we would have sort of shoot to kill first. And of course, I think about earlier, I think in this year we had a toddler breach the fence. And so clear, for me at least, that that's too far, and want to create an environment where we all feel that there's a public safety aspect here. But I think in your earlier testimony, you said that we've had 60 individuals try to breach the fence this year. So that's roughly one a week.
16 over 5 years. Six individuals this year.
This year. In any event, so this we know that folks, whether it's a mental illness issue or something in addition to that, we know that we have an issue. And I also heard you earlier in your testimony talk about part of your career in the Secret Service, that you were at one point in time working on some of the IT issues. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So I want to now go back to the 2011 incident, and I'm going to read to you what the Washington Post said about that shooting incident. And I know that we've said this several times, bears repeating. Back in the White House, key people in charge of the safety of the president's family were not initially aware that a shooting occurred because officers guarding the White House grounds communicate on a different radio frequency from the ones used by agents who protect the first family. The agent assigned to Sasha learned of the shooting a few minutes later from an officer posted nearby. Now, while communications and radio dispatch in and of themselves may not be narrowly key, I construe communications efforts, particularly in the context of interoperability, to be definitely inside that realm. Since 2011, have you resolved those communication issues?
Yes, and as a result of the incident, we have ensured that information is passed, even if agents, officers, or others are operating on a different radio frequency, that same information is passed, that emergency information is passed to all people who have a need to know.
So all of the radio frequencies are now, you're communicating on a single, and that may be an inappropriate statement about how that works, but they're all interoperable. All those communications techniques are working collectively, and so are the alarms.
The radio systems are operating with commonality, and that is controlled through our Joint Operations Center. So agents and officers are allowed to operate on particular frequencies based upon their work. The alarm systems are now becoming more and more integrated with some of our radio systems, but we are still in that transition phase.
Because I'm really, among all of the other issues, I'm really struggling with the communications and the unilateral efforts by any personnel to decide not to have an alarm, such as the door, by the ushers, or anybody else. And I'm really trying to understand that if you're doing this continuous improvement, training, investment in making sure that this elite protective force is in fact just that, state-of-the-art, effective elite, how that miscommunication could occur without anyone having any idea. And for me, it's gross neglect. How does that occur? How does somebody at that level interfere with the protocol established by the Secret Service?
I think the concern was when these alarms were put into place, the proximity to other activities within the White House that could be an interference, such as the tour lines or other public events.
So an interference, I said that I think that you need to be able to address the balances of the public visiting, utilizing, meeting at the White House. But it's stunning to me that that would trump your own protocols for making sure that that you have alarms whose purpose is to trigger a threat so that you can have an effective global, within the Secret Service, both interior and exterior, a communications plan that would allow you to effectively execute a protocol. Otherwise, you can't. And I know I'm out of my time, but
the gentlelady
something's wrong with this. I
will be
yield back.
going into a classified session. I think that's going to help.